Hello everybody and welcome back to creating a horror game from scratch. My name is Darkslayer TV and last week we built a door. In fact, the last couple weeks we've been building a door because they're very complex and I could go on for a long time about them. However, I think now is a good stopping point and I wanted to pull this over because I wanted to show you. I received a comment from Henry Reviews wanting to do a flashlight system and a read note system. You know what? We are going to do that. We are going to start with a flashlight system first. Also, one last note here. I have moved to Unreal Engine 5.4. Our last project was 5.3. I just moved it over to 5.4. It copied over. There were no issues. All right, let's get started. I'm going to hit Control Space. I'm going to go over to Content, go into my Blueprints folder. This is going to be an actor. And within the actors, I'm going to create a new blueprint class. It will be an actor, of course. And I'm just going to call this BP Flashlight. And I'm going to go ahead and open that up. I do not have a model for a flashlight. So what I'm going to do is get a cylinder, add a static mesh, and I'm just going to call this SM Flashlight. And for the static mesh, we are simply going to start typing in the word cylinder like that. And this will do just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and take it. I'm going to make it so it's facing forward and not up. I'll Control Shift S to make sure it's nice and saved. And then what I want to do is add a, not point light, a spotlight. So we'll go ahead and add a spotlight. I'm going to make it a child of the flashlight. It doesn't necessarily have to be. However, that's what I plan on doing. And just to make this look a little bit better visually, I'm going to go over here to the right-hand side in the details. And you see this inner cone? Let's crank this up to like 25. It's a little too hard. Let's go 10. So what that's going to do is it's going to make this area brighter than the rest. So that way it'll look a little bit more real. We're gonna have a little bit of a fall off coming from the center there where the flashlight is most focused. I'm gonna make sure I save and hit compile. We'll come back and add functionality here in a moment, but let's go over to our first person blueprints and open our first person character here. You'll note that we are currently using the first person template, which means we have these arms. I'm gonna edit these arms so that way they're always up like this as if he's holding the rifle. That way I can just hide the arms and then use the grip as a way to add movement to the flashlight so it's not so static, and you'll see what I mean. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on the arms, and on the right hand side here, you're gonna see we're using an animation blueprint and we're using animation BPC. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit this little browse to asset in content browser. And this is the blueprint. So I'm gonna double click on it and open it up. When you open it up, it'll be like somewhere right here. Go over to the event graph. Right now, you'll see that basically on update animation, which is essentially every frame, it's going to go through, it's going to get a bunch of different details from our pawn, so that way it knows what to do with the arms. Well, one thing it does is it says, hey, do they have the rifle? We're actually just going to go ahead and grab this, and we're going to delete it. And instead, we're going to go over here on the left-hand side, and we're going to make it so that is always true. And we're gonna hit compile and save. And you'll note now up here in our preview, he always has his arms up in a position as if he's holding a rifle. Let's just go test to make sure that is working appropriately. And you'll see on the bottom there, my output log is kind of in the way, but you can see the thumb as we walk, and it does look like he has a rifle. So with that set up that way, what we can do is now we actually don't need these arms anymore. So I'm going to go up here to the first person mesh, and I am going to type up here and just type in the word visible or VIS, and I'm going to go ahead and uncheck it. So these still exist. They're still animating, but now we can't see them because we don't want them. Now, if you have a mesh or arms and you have them to where you want them to be seen, go for it. I'm doing it this way so we can get the movement from the arms, but I don't actually want the arms, and I'll show you what I mean here in a second. So what I'm going to do is on the first person mesh as a child, I'm actually going to add a child actor, and I'm just going to call this CA underscore item. And the reason I'm going to call it underscore item instead of flashlight is because it's just a little bit more dynamic of a name. Maybe you're going to have more than just a possible flashlight. And because CA item is a child of our first person mesh, what I can do is on the right hand side here, you'll see there's parent sockets. Well, when you have a skeletal mesh like those arms, there's different sockets. You have a right elbow, a left elbow, a right hand, a left hand, all the fingers. But there's also something called a grip socket by default in the Unreal Engine mannequin. And what I can do is just hit this little folder here, and you'll see here are all the ones I was talking about. But we have the grip point. So if I click on the grip point, you'll note that now this little world marker is up here. And you can see, by the way, it's lightly moving. Do you see that? It's lightly moving because the animation is still happening. So what I'm going to do now on the right hand side is I'm actually going to set a child actor. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this drop down menu, and we called it BP underscore flashlight. So we'll go ahead and click that. And you'll see, by the way, first off, my cylinder is way too large. But you'll see that it is also up here in the hand region, and it is slightly moving around. Let's go over to our flashlight. First things first, let's take our static mesh here and make it, I don't know, like maybe, we'll start with maybe 1/4 of the size, something like that. We'll go ahead and save it and compile. Let's go see what that looks like in our first person little area here. You'll note that it's still rather thick compared to long. So what I'll do is make sure you have your scale here unlocked. Otherwise, it'll scale in a uniform way. Well, in this case, I don't want it to scale in a uniform way. I want it to stay long, but way less girthy. So instead of 0.25 and 0.25 on the X and Y, we're going to do like a 0.1 and a 0.1. And all of a sudden, we have a much more flashlight shaped item. We'll go ahead and grab our spotlight, make sure it's still in the appropriate position, which it is, which is fantastic. And let's head back to our first person character where we are currently mounting this. You'll note you can't see the light, by the way. It is there, there's just nothing for it to hit. However, you'll notice it doesn't quite fit how we want it. This is simply due to the fact that the grip spot is meant for the rifle, and we're not using the rifle. So there's a couple ways we can go about this, but I think the easiest one I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to rotate the child actor to fit what we're going for. So it should be something about like this. Make sure it is facing mostly forward. You'll see that 10 was a bit too much there, so we'll drop our the snap on the rotation down, and we'll do that. That's pretty straight, and that is slightly curved to the right. Do you see that? So what I'll do is, that is the Z. Specifically, it appears to be less on the Z. So I will go over here, and it's currently at 80. So let's take it down all the way to 79. Not quite. Let's go to 75. 75. 75 is pretty straight. And you'll note that we can't really see what it looks like from our camera perspective. Like, we can't really see this flashlight. So I'm going to show you how we're going to go about actually checking on this. Let's head back to the first person map. And instead of dragging just a start position, I'm actually going to go to first person blueprints and drop our character into the map, which, by the way, first off, you can see the flashlight is turned on now. It's kind of hard to see because it's already bright, but you can really see it in this shadow right here. But if we click on this, now you'll see we get a preview window. And in the preview window, we can't even see the flashlight. If you have 2 monitors, you can absolutely just use 2 monitors, put one of these windows on one, and put the BP on another. I'm recording, so I'm not going to do that. But obviously, it's going to need to come out some, so let's just bring it out a little bit and then see where it's at. You can start to see it down here at the bottom of the screen. And now we need to go to the right some. So let's head back and go to the right. I don't know, let's go 2 ticks and see where that is at. And there we go. We now have a flashlight right here on the right-hand side of our screen. So we're gonna go ahead and save. Let's make sure this is saved and compiled on everything. And let's go ahead and hit play. And I'll show you a couple things. First off, you'll note that we have an idle animation on the flashlight, which is good, so that way it doesn't feel static. And if we walk, oh, our character doesn't know what to do. All right, bonus points if you know what's happening. Here's the thing. If you know what's happening, I want you to leave a comment. I want you to pause right now and leave a comment. And you'll get brownie points from me. If you don't know what's happening, that's fine. That's why you're here. What is happening is that cylinder has collision. So our character is trying to move forward, but literally part of it is crammed into something that has collision. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our BP flashlight. We're going to grab that static mesh. And on the right-hand side, just start typing in the word collision. And what we're going to do is we're going to expand collision presets. We're going to set it to custom. And then just ignore all. Make sure this ignore is set for everything. And when we go back, now we shouldn't have any issues actually moving around. Oh, that's unfortunate. I didn't mean to pick the gun up. All right, let's try that again. But you see, because the animation blueprint is set up, now we have a flashlight that actually moves with our character, and it even has the little jump animation, and it feels a lot more alive than if it was just something static sitting there. However, it still feels very, very, very static. You see how when I move it around, it almost just like stiffly keeps up with us? Let's add a little bit of delay to all that. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. Let's head to our BP first person character. Let's go to our first person mesh. So click on the first person mesh. We're going to click add. And now we're going to type in spring. We want a spring arm. So I'm going to type in, or I'm going to call it spring arm underscore item. So we know what it's for in case you have multiple. I've had actors with multiple. On the right hand side, what we want to do is set the parent socket to the grip point, which we will have to set this to basically be where this is at right now. So what I'm going to do is, you see how the arrows are pointed all in random weird locations? That's because it's doing it locally. So I'm going to go up here, and there's this little thing here, and if you click it, it'll set it to world instead. We're going to drag it so it's basically in position already with our flashlight where we want it. Then on the right hand side, we're going to set the target arm length to 0, because essentially what we're going to use the spring arm for is purely delay, not positioning, just a delay. So that is why you're going to see me put the arm length on 0, because it just needs to act as a delayer. Then instead of the child actor item being a part or a child of the first person mesh, we're going to make it a child of the spring arm. And you'll see that it pretty much put it exactly where it was already at, because we had already positioned the spring arm, which is perfect. And now we're going to go back to the spring arm on the left hand side. And what we want to do is make it delayed. On the right hand side, you'll see there's enable camera lag, enable camera rotation lag, and we'll keep both of those on. So I'm going to hit compile and save. And you're going to note when we test this, I'll show you, it's very bad at first, like very bad. Like you see how like as I'm turning, it's like really delayed. Oh, Jesus. But this is what we're going for. But we just need to not make it that delayed. Now, I've been doing a lot of work with arms lately, spring arms. So I already know a good value. We can do 25 or 30. I think 30 is good for guns because you need those to be in position. But with the flashlight, I think 25 on each is going to be a perfect little number for us. Let's hit compile and save. And now, not only do we have a flashlight with animation, you can see that it kind of lags a bit. It lags behind. For some reason, I'm getting a weird jumpy effect. I don't know if you guys are as well. I'm not sure what that jumpy effect is. I'm not sure why it's doing that. There we go. Okay, if yours is doing it, it is a frame rate issue. Yours probably was not doing it because I'm recording, so I'm assuming that was the issue. But you see how it's not doing it anymore? It's because I set my frame rate to a maximum of 60. I think before it was OBS and my computer battling it out. Again, if you're having frame rate issues and it's doing that, let me know and I'll see if I can't work with you guys to get it fixed. It shouldn't be having an issue. I think it was just a physics update issue. Regardless, capping my frame rate at 60 solved it for now. Okay, great. So now we have a flashlight. It moves around with us. It looks kind of good when we're holding it. But the issue now comes down to the fact that maybe we don't want to hold it. Maybe we don't have it in our inventory, and maybe we want the user to be able to turn it on and off. First things first, let's go ahead and give it the on and off function, and then we'll learn about actually putting it in our hand. So I'm going to go over to our content, dark BPs, and then I'm going to go to interfaces. So right now we have an interface for anything we want to interact with in the world. We have one for talking to the player. However, now we're going to create another one under blueprints, blueprint interface, and we're going to call this BPI underscore items. So basically, if we ever have an item equipped, this will be a way to send it a message. I'm going to open that up. And for now, I'm simply going to rename this function and just call it use request. And I'm going to hit compile and save. Now to implement the interface, we do need to go to our flashlight. We need to go to the class settings. We need to go to interfaces and add an implemented one. We're going to type in BPI, select on items, and we will hit Control-Shift-S because that saves everything and hit compile. Now in our event graph, we can double click on use request. And essentially we need a couple variables to make this work. We're going to add a variable. We're just going to call this on. And for now, that should be good. We'll hit compile and save. We will make it off by default. In order to do that, we're going to click on our spotlight specifically. And we're going to set the visibility to not visible. Why? Because the flashlight's off. And what you'll do is on the left-hand side under components, you'll see that on should be ironically off by default. If you can't see that, make sure you compile. So what we'll do is on the use request, we will get on. We will run a branch by holding B and clicking. If it is on, we will set our spotlight's visibility. So set visibility to false. If it's off and we have the use event, we will set our visibility to true, and we'll hit compile and save. Now we need a way to send this message to the flashlight so it knows to actually do these things. What we're going to do is, do you guys remember we actually had to do some input stuff on the first episode? We're going to do something like that again. Let's head over to first person input. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new action. In fact, we don't even need to. We're going to use the input action for shoot because it's on left click already. So that should work for us. If it doesn't, I would go back to the first episode and double check how we created a input action. So we need to go into our first person character, specifically the event graph, and we are going to zoom out slightly. And what we're going to look for, we're going to go down here, and we're going to right click, and we'll put IA underscore shoot. You want specifically the action or the event, not the value. So we have the event here. And once we get a started on the trigger, we're going to get our item. So there's something weird about the item, by the way. This is something that I learned recently, and I think it's silly, but let me explain. We have our child actor item. If we were to pull out of this and just type in our interface, which would be use request, remember if it says message, it's because it's an interface. And then we said, hey, whenever we start by shooting or left clicking, send a message to our child actor. This won't work. And it took me a long time to figure out why. It actually doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but it's fine. We're going to unplug both of these. And what we're going to do is out of the child actor, we're going to get child actor. So from the item, we then have to get the child actor. I don't know why, but that is how it works. So there we go. So now whenever we left click, we're going to send our child actor a use request, which we know that the use request will change the light on and off, which if you caught this already, good job. Basically, I didn't change the variable. So it's always going to be off and always trying to turn it on. So whenever we turn it on, we are going to grab on, we're going to hit set, and there. Now we will set it to off whenever, on whenever we turn it on. We'll copy and paste that, and we'll turn this off whenever we turn it off. And that should be everything for now. So let's hit play. So now you'll see that it's off by default. If I left click, oh, you know what the problem is? We're never changing context. I even told myself earlier in the video, it's context sensitive. Can you guys tell in this video I'm really tired? It's really late at night and I really wanted to get this video up. I apologize. Let's get back to it. So we're going to go to first person. We're going to go to input. And in the default, you'll note that for the mappings, we don't have one for shoot. So we're going to add a mapping and you remember that it is shoot, we will open that up to select a key. I'm just going to click on the keyboard, then left click my mouse, and you'll see that we have left mouse button. Of course, you can set this up to whatever you want. It can be F. It can even be something that's not input action shoot. I'm just using it for convenience. So now with that set up in our default context, now you can see I can left click and I will turn my child actor on and off. And unfortunately, that's all I have time for now. Your homework this week is to try to finish that. See if you can figure out how to use maybe an overlap event or an interaction event to add a flashlight to your inventory. Here's a hint. You can either do it with an array if you're a more advanced user, or you could just do it with a simple Boolean. But I'd like you to try. Thank you so much for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.